One of the things that I thought that I would talk with you about tonight is the stability of our foundation. And I think it's important right now, as we are in these uncharted waters, these unbelievable times, to try and appreciate why our foundation and how we have protected the valuable assets that you have so generously given and put into the Rotary Foundation, understanding how they grow and how they do so much more good in the world when we amplify that investment over our 3-year cycle that we do every year. Now, I will tell you that the Rotary Foundation has a very robust financial investment portfolio. And, I think that you would likely imagine that that is a relatively conservative portfolio. We invest in the endowment fund, we invest in the annual fund, the polio fund, and then others, which include donor designated funds and different advised funds and a couple of different things like that. Now, the endowment fund, because that is long term, one of the things that I wanted to share with you tonight is I think some very encouraging and some very good news. We have a goal of establishing our endowment at 2.25 billion by 2025. And at this point in time, we are well over 400, I think about 450 million, I should say, in cash toward that endowment. And I think it's about 866 million. My numbers could be off a couple million in either direction in expectancies. And so we are, more than halfway there to achieving that. Now, obviously with expectancies, we won't actualize those for some time, but it really does tell us that Rotarians understand the importance of the endowment fund and what it means to protecting the future of our organization and crafting and creating more funds for us to do good. And so the annual fund, the World Fund, is where we are having a little bit of well, it's an opportunity. I was going to say a challenge, but let's go with the word opportunity. That's a much more positive framework. And that we know that back in 2016, we had a banner year. It was our centennial year of the Rotary Foundation, and we raised a lot of money during that time, and consequently, money available for global grants was in excess of 42 million. And those numbers have dwindled a little bit in the subsequent years to follow, and there's been other additional pressure on the World Fund. And so we have fewer dollars right now to be able to fund some of our global grants. And we know that also in the historic times that we're living in, we've also come against and come up against COVID-19 and what that has meant to our foundation as well. But that's a good news story. That is a really good news story. We have been able to issue more than $5 million in disaster response grants, which were literally approved. Rachel and her colleagues in the foundation department, literally, these folks were working around the clock. And so from the time that we were able to announce that there was money available in the disaster response fund, to funds being not only applications received, but funds received and put into the hands of Rotarians on the front line, I think it was something like 4 or 5 business days. Mm-hmm. That showcases the flexibility, the nimbleness that we know that we have available to us within the Rotary Foundation. And not only that, that $5 million in disaster response grant is only part of the COVID story. We have had districts that have been able to repurpose their global grants, and that totaled with the disaster response fund is in excess of $20 million that we've been able to get onto the front lines to make sure that Rotarians are able to do life-saving work in every corner of our world, because clearly we know this touched a lot of folks. So just back very quickly to our investments, the endowment fund, because it is a longer term proposition, is just a smidge less conservative, and we have seen a very negligible blip in that regard. Polio has remained status quo. We protect those dollars in a very conservative way, and the annual fund likewise has done very, very well. So, obviously we still remain in a state of volatility, but I thought it was important to share this with you because I think it's important that you understand that we comb through this every single meeting. And we also have extensive volunteers who are financial experts, and our finance committee, that is also providing excellent guidance throughout the whole process. And I think for donors, I think it's important for us to know that that's why Charity Navigator gives us the highest possible rating that it does, because we are extraordinary stewards of the funds that you so generously donate to our Rotary Foundation. And so tonight, I know that there are many levels of recognition, and it doesn't really, I don't want to distinguish one from the other, because at any point in time in our life, each of those gifts is profoundly meaningful. And if you're just entering into your journey to supporting the Rotary Foundation, or if you are at a point in your life where you believe that there is a larger gift that you're making, every single one of those dollars is important. And I just want to say thank you sincerely from the bottom of my heart tonight to each and every one of you for not only taking the time to be on this call, but clearly for making the Rotary Foundation a priority. And so my hat's off to you. I look forward to being on the call with you for the rest of the evening. And well, I guess we're not going to be all evening. We'll be, we'd have to put our PJs on. And I actually just came from an Aloha meeting. That's why I had these beads on when I first came on the call. Zoom, maybe this is a little bit of a flip comment, but the Zoom pandemic, I'm sure we've all experienced that at this point in time now, where we're on a lot of calls on a regular basis, but these are the ones that warm my heart. So Governor Debbie, thank you for including me. And Rachel, thank you very much for the kind introduction. And let me turn it back over to you. And clearly, if there's any questions at any point in the call, I'd be more than happy to take them.
Thank you very much, Jennifer. I'd like to just take a moment and ask if anyone has any questions for Jennifer, if you would just write them into the chat, and we'll take a look at those. If you don't have them right now and they pop up later, I'm sure we'll be able to see those and get those to Jennifer.
Rachel, this is Debbie. We do have a question. If Jennifer would please explain the 2.25 by 2025, just a little bit more, please.
So the endowment fund, which will be a fund that once it is actualized, and hopefully it's by 2025, those are funds that will continue through investments to generate large sums of money, which we will be able to put into the work of the Rotary Foundation. And so without doing too deep of a dive, I mentioned how in 2016 we had a really banner year in the Rotary Foundation, and how the subsequent years have waned just a little bit. And that's to be expected. That's normal. We had a big push. And so we saw great donations during that time. But it's also put us into a position over the next 3 to 5 to say 7 years where we're I hate to use the word struggle, but we're going to struggle a little bit because there is so much pressure on the World Fund as we try to complete polio. And I didn't even talk about polio tonight. I can certainly dive into that, because there's some amazing information I should share with you on that front. But we have other priorities, other things that are coming onto our horizon. One of these is a new grant type that will launch in October, Programs of Scale, and it's a new $2 million grant to work with a partner, to identify a partner, and to do something of a very large scale nature, which has great sustainability and makes a large impact. Well, that's a substantive amount of money that that comes out of the money that we have from the World Fund and the annual fund. So there is this pressure that we're going to feel, and so once we actualize that 2025 to 2.25 billion, just just start doing the math on what that means of what could go back into funding projects. And Debbie, I'm not sure if I'm answering your question in full.
You are. You're doing great.
I'm just going to say, if there's another aspect to that, please let me know. But that's in essence, the great hope is that that will allow us to grow and do more.
Now we do have another question. If you can talk a little bit about the Jack Nicklaus golf outing. It was an incredible idea, the first of its kind, and I'm not sure that everyone knows about that.
Well, so I'll try and keep this concise because I don't want to drag it out. I know there's other things happening tonight, but it's a fun little story. So if you'll indulge me and just give me the hook if I'm talking too long.
Will do.
Debbie. But back in 2016 at the International Convention in Atlanta, Georgia, some of you may have been in attendance there, and I had the incredible privilege and pleasure of interviewing the world's greatest golfer of all time, Jack Nicklaus. And I was very excited about this. And, it was a daunting task being up on stage and interviewing him in front of 30,000 of my closest best friends. And I did an enormous amount of research in advance so that I knew exactly what how he was going to answer questions. We were backstage and I was assigned a green room where I could hang out in advance of the interview, and he and his wife Barbara were assigned a green room next to mine. And my husband is an absolutely fanatical golfer. And so he was very excited by the proposition that he was going to get to meet Jack Nicklaus. And so I made him a deal. I said, listen, let me do the interview. And then after the fact, then I'll have made friends with him, and it'll be really easy to be able to say, hey, can I introduce you to my husband? So he's like, okay. So we're in our green room, and I excuse myself to go over and introduce myself to Mr. Nicklaus and his wife. We've got an hour and a half before showtime. And, I didn't want to talk with him too much because I didn't want the interview to happen before we got on stage. And so anyway, we're chit-chatting for a few minutes, and his wife Barbara's kind of looking around like this. And I said, can I get you something? And she said, oh gosh, I would love a cup of coffee. And I said, well, there's a Keurig machine right here. I'll make you one. No, it's broken. So I said, well, you know what? I've got one in my green room. Let me go make you a cup of coffee. So she says, okay, I'll come with you. So we go walking into our green room. My husband knows exactly who this is. And he didn't physically do it, but I could tell that he was kind of like, I know who you are. So anyway, they started talking. They became fast and furious friends. And lo and behold, as she's about to leave, she turns and says to him, what are you doing? And he says, I'm just hanging. And she says, well, come and hang with us. So they sat for an hour and a half and talked about golf, religion, politics, polio, Rotary, you name it, fly fishing, everything under the sun. And toward the end of it, Nick said, Mr. Nicklaus, I've had this dream of a day of golf where we invite donors. We have a level of giving within our organization of $250,000, becoming an Arch Clump Society member, that we invite 4 golfers one day, $1 million for polio. And Mr. Nicklaus said, you can do that? And he said, yes. He said, you do that, I'll give you the whole day. And that day was a year ago, and we had ended up having 2 foursomes. We had additional matches that came into play. And on that day, we did raise $5.25 million, and he spent the entire day. He did a golf clinic. We had lunch in his private dining room. He played 18 holes, 9 with each foursome. He signed every single thing that anybody brought with them. We had a beautiful dinner with he and his wife, Barbara. And then at the end of the night, I made a pledge and a promise to them to personally oversee the creation of the first global grant that I'm actually going to work on, personally spearheading to come up with a grant in excess of, at least at a minimum of $250,000 to benefit the Nicholas Children's Hospital Network. And so we've just actually come to an agreement on it being a telemedicine mental health project for children in the Miami-Dade area and certain schools that we've identified. And as of last Friday, the Rotary Club of Key Biscayne signed on as the international partner, and which is fun because I'm Canadian, so I can have a U.S. partner and it becomes international.
Yeah.
And so we'll see how that unfolds in the weeks and months to come. But the last question he was asked that night was, you know, and he's a polio survivor. I forgot to mention that.
Right.
The last question he was asked, would you do it again? And he said, every year as long as you need it. And so I need to get this grant under my belt right now so that we can plan the next day and get to a point where we're all able to get back onto a golf course again. But, you know, this is that experiential fundraising that Rachel mentioned in my intro, is coming up with, you know, what are the cool ideas like this? You know, who do we have access to? And thinking outside the box. You know, is it a famous chef that you know? Is it another famous golfer? Is it what are the things that we can do to get creative in our fund development ideas? And so I throw it out tonight just as a way of maybe challenging people to think about that, because it's not always necessarily going into our own pockets. It's how we amplify that with an action and how we can bring people together. And it certainly did prove to be successful.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I think that it's an extraordinary story and just tells us the power of the networking and the connections that Rotary creates. So thank you, Jennifer. But we'll turn it back to Rachel.
And thank you very much, Jennifer. I was there in Atlanta, and I was just fascinated with that interview. I'm an avid golfer, and I love Jack Nicklaus, and it was a wonderful interview. And it was so great to, you know, hear this story and everything that came out of it. So thank you for sharing that with us. And I just have to pass along today at my club meeting, we were talking a little bit about the Rotary Foundation and the response to COVID-19. And one of our members said, you know, I've never really thought about the foundation as being nimble and quick, because that wasn't, you know, really part of the mission. But you've been nimble and quick, and it's had an enormous impact on our communities and around the world. So thank you. Now it's my pleasure to introduce Rotary Foundation Major Gifts Officer, Rachel Greenhoe. Rachel joined the Rotary Foundation in February 2010 and has been in her current role since 2014. She's responsible for major gift cultivation and stewardship in Wisconsin, Michigan's Upper Peninsula, Minnesota, North Dakota, South Dakota, Iowa, and Northern Illinois. Rachel is an alumni of the Rotary Foundation as a group study exchange team member in 2008 from District 6440. Going to District 1770 in France. She's been an active Rotarian for more than 10 years and is currently a member of the Rotary Club of Park Ridge. And she served as the club president of the Rotary Club of Chicago Lakeview in 2012-13, and also as a RILA counselor in 2013. Rachel.
Thank you so much, Rachel. As mentioned, I formerly was a Rotarian in District 6450, so it's so nice to see some familiar faces and also some new Rotary friends as well. It's my pleasure to spend this evening with you, some of District 6450's most dedicated and generous donors. Thank you so much for all you do. You know, the current health crisis has highlighted what Rotarians do best, seeing a need in our communities and then working together within those communities or with Rotarians across the globe to address those needs. We have demonstrated that we truly are people of action. We do amazing work in our clubs every day. That alone is noteworthy and inspiring. But it is when we combine the expertise, determination, and compassion that we find in our club membership with that of the Rotary Foundation that we realized our true potential to change the world. Now, Trustee Jennifer shared with you the impact that the Rotary Foundation has and is possible because of you, because of your support. Now, I know in these challenging times for many, but I do know also that for those of you who are able to provide support at this time, you might be interested to know where that support is needed most, and also how you can have the greatest impact in the areas of the foundation that are most important to you. So this evening, I would like to share with you the impact of your gifts and that what they have made the difference to the Rotary Foundation, and also the gifts that you give now can have in the future of the foundation, along with highlighting some updates regarding various ways to make a gift. So the Disaster Response Fund is one way that Rotary has addressed the current pandemic, and Jennifer touched upon that and the impact that we have had through that Disaster Response Fund. As of May of 19th, there have been 225 disaster response grants that were approved this Rotary year, totaling over 5.5 million. And of that, 199 have been COVID-19 related. So as Jennifer shared, the COVID-19 related grants are around $5 million worth. Now, currently, contributions to the fund cannot keep up with the demand. So right now, your gifts will provide much needed immediate support for COVID-19 or other disasters that might occur. Of course, the eradication of polio is our #1 priority, and your continued support has brought us so far in being able to achieve that goal. Because of you, we hit some important milestones this Rotary year. In October, we celebrated the eradication of the type 3 wild polio virus, leaving only the wild polio virus type 1. In August 2019 marked 3 years since Nigeria last reported a case of the wild polio virus. So it leaves Pakistan and Afghanistan as the only endemic countries remaining. Now, while there is so much to celebrate, we also face challenges in vaccinating every child in hard to reach populations within Pakistan and Afghanistan, leading to an increase in polio cases in recent years. The current pandemic also presents additional challenges. Due to the pandemic, the Polio Oversight Board made the difficult decision to pause house-to-house vaccinations, knowing this may lead to an increase in polio cases. However, polio surveillance continues while also supporting COVID surveillance. Rotary and its partners are also working to ensure that once it's safe to do so, countries can rapidly resume polio immunizations. Now, one significant challenge for Polio Plus that the pandemic has created is an issue of funding. Prior to the pandemic, we were on track to raise the $50 million needed to receive the full Gates Foundation 2-to-1 match. However, as of last week, we're still $9.9 million away. So now, more than ever, your gifts towards Polio Plus are so important in securing the full Gates match for the year and also bringing us closer to a polio-free world. Now, where you probably see most firsthand the impact of your giving is through our granting activities. So the money that you have available to do your Rotary projects both internationally and in your own communities is the direct result of contributions to the Rotary Foundation. I ran a report of your district's global grants approved this Rotary year, and the list is truly inspiring. To highlight just a few, the Rotary Club of Chicago World Nations was awarded a grant to establish a multi-sensory therapy center on the south side of Chicago for the purposes of providing occupational, speech, and physical therapies to special needs children. Yours are even among some of the COVID-19 related global grants that were fast-tracked by the Rotary Foundation, with global grants providing PPE equipment and supplies to hospitals in India, Ecuador, and Honduras. Now, you also done amazing work this Rotary year in your communities through district grants. Over $41,000 was awarded to your district for district grant projects this year. So all of this work is made possible through your annual fund contributions. And the money you have available to fund your district grants and global grants is mostly the result of annual fund contributions from 3 years prior. Now, as Jennifer mentioned, 3 years ago was the foundation centennial, right? And that's where, as a result, contributions were at their highest. Now, as you know, 3 years ago, none of us could have imagined the challenges that we are facing today. In fact, even 3 months ago, it's hard for us to imagine the extent of the need in our world. We are so fortunate that we have those contributions from 3 years prior that were so high, so that now, at a time when the need is so great, Rotarians have had that money available to fund the work that is more important than ever. So we are approaching the end of the Rotary year during a time that is difficult for many. So historically, 25% of foundation contributions come in in the months of May and June. So this could mean a decrease in annual fund gifts, which in turn will mean less money for your projects 3 years from now. So what you're able to give now to the annual fund will provide the funding for your important Rotary work in 3 years. Now, Jennifer talked a little bit about Rotary's endowment. And while gifts to the annual fund of the Rotary Foundation help people around the globe live better lives today, gifts to Rotary's endowment support the same life-changing programs forever. So your gift to the endowment is never spent. Instead, it is invested, and each year, a portion of the investment earnings then can fund the areas of the foundation that are most important to you. So you can support a specific area of focus or the Rotary Peace Centers, or you can even choose to have the earnings benefit your Rotary district by increasing the district's DDF, which is the money available for your projects, every year. Now, since your endowment fund gifts provide funding to the areas of the foundation that mean the most to you every year in perpetuity, your gift can provide your district with much needed support in years when a decrease in annual fund giving might be the reality. So there are a multitude of giving vehicles available to you. And your personal situation will always determine, obviously, which is the best fit. However, knowing that we have some of our most dedicated donors on our call today, I just wanted to take a moment to highlight some giving trends related to certain giving vehicles that might interest you. So on the screen, you'll see a list of a number of ways that you can make a gift. And I won't take the time to go over each one. However, one that has become increasingly popular with donors is the IRA charitable rollover. So individuals age 70.5 and older can give a gift directly from their IRA, and as a result, not increase their taxable income by taking that distribution themselves. Now this year, there have been some changes in the required minimum distribution for IRAs. So as always, you should consult your advisors to determine what's best for you. We have also seen an uptick in interest in charitable gift annuities. So with a charitable gift annuity, you can transfer cash or securities to the Rotary Foundation and receive fixed payments for you and a loved one for life. And right now we're seeing that this can be an attractive option for some donors who might be concerned about the fluctuating stock market. Now, with this gift, any remainder after your lifetime will provide ongoing support to foundation programs in perpetuity. Also, in making the gift, you qualify for major donor recognition for the full value of the transfer and receive partial tax benefits as well. Now, the American Council on Gift Annuities just passed a decision to lower future annuity rates, which is also what the rates that Rotary uses. So this means that donors who act now and complete their gift before June 30th will receive higher annuity rates than what they would in the near future. So donors who are looking to establish their Rotary legacy often do so by remembering the Rotary Foundation and their final estate plans. And this can be done by making the foundation a beneficiary in your will, retirement plan, or life insurance. And I'm happy to share with you that Rotary has just made a partnership that actually makes establishing your legacy even easier. Historically, 2/3 of adult population in the US has no will at all. And this number is changing rapidly during the pandemic as people are more interested than ever in securing their financial plans. So there are obviously hundreds of Rotarian state attorneys who can assist you in this type of planning. And there's also now an online tool called Free Will that is yet another tool that some donors might be interested in utilizing. So this online resource is completely free and is easy, allowing donors to legally document simple and intuitive estate plans, including charitable wishes. And then they can afterwards, if they wish, share those with their personal advisors as well. So donors who use this tool should visit the Rotary Foundation's custom page at freewill.com/the Rotary Foundation. So in conclusion, I just wanted to thank you for allowing me to share this evening with you today and for your dedication to improving the world through the Rotary Foundation. Rotary's impact in the world is dependent on you, and I want to thank you so much for your hard work to implement projects that change lives and transform communities every day. And thank you for your generous support that makes that work possible. It's always my great pleasure to help donors achieve their philanthropic goals through the Rotary Foundation. And if I can be of service to you in any way, please don't hesitate to contact me. So, thank you so much, Rachel. I'll pass it back to you. And if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
I think there is.
Yes, this is Debbie Ross, and we've got a couple questions, please.
Sure.
David Baker. The question is, what will be the percentage of the endowment fund interest that is targeted for expenditure on an annual basis?
So I can actually share with you, if you contact me afterwards, the exact chart. But the spending is based on if your individual fund is at a certain level above the market value. So if it's over like a certain percentage, then it spends at a higher rate. And if it's at a certain percentage below the market value, then it spends at a lower rate. On average, a lot of the time you're looking around 4%.
Thank you, Rachel. We have one other question from Richard Tatara. He's asking, is the $9.9 million that's needed yet to secure the Gates Foundation, is that needed before the end of the calendar year, which would be December 31st, or the Rotary year, which is June 30th?
That's for our goal for the Rotary year, and that includes all contributions. So it includes contributions from individuals, along with DDF contributions from districts and the World Fund match. And of course, Jennifer, you're heading up the polio initiative for that. So if you have anything else to add about that, I'm happy to let you add to that as well.
No, I don't have a lot to add to that. Essentially, it's crunch time, and we only have a short window of time. And I may have mentioned this earlier, but we found ourselves in a very similar situation last year. So even taking COVID out of the equation, we're looking at creative ways right now to make sure that we achieve the $50 million by June 30th, because as we all know, we don't want to leave the Gates matching dollars on the table. We want to take full advantage of every one of those dollars being matched. So yes, it's a time when a lot of clubs and districts and individuals are getting very creative with different fundraising opportunities. But we also know this is a time of the year where a lot of people hold back and give their donations in the last few weeks.
Right.
And so it always makes us all nervous, because you don't know what's going to happen in those last couple of weeks. But I suspect that we'll see that gap narrow considerably. And I have every faith that we're going to get across the finish line to that 50 million.
Thank you, Jennifer. Rachel, back to you.
Well, thank you. And thank you, Rachel, for your wonderful remarks and giving us insight into where funds are needed the most at this time. I think that's very helpful and very valuable for us. So thank you. And if anybody has any additional questions for Jennifer and for Rachel, please go ahead and continue to put them in the chat as we go through the rest of our program, and we'll find a way either to address them tonight or offline. So thank you. So Rachel touched a bit on District 6450 and the impact of our donations to the annual fund 3 years ago, but I want to share a little bit more. So because of our generous donors, our humanitarian footprint in District 6450 is big, both locally and globally. It's especially your contributions to the annual fund that make it possible for us to work together to change lives. And this year we're going to show you in detail where we used our district designated funds that we received from our donations to the annual fund 3 years ago. They were used in global grants, district grants, and donations to Polio Plus and disaster relief. So specifically in global grants, and Rachel touched on this, we have provided so far over $68,000 of district funds for our global grants, resulting in total project funding of over $1.5 million. And actually, I think these numbers are a little bit off. I did this slide back in late May, and we've had several more global grants approved in the meantime, specifically for COVID-19. So the totals are actually higher than that. And we had 9 clubs participating as sponsors, and it actually might be a few more with the additional COVID-19 projects in Ecuador and in India. And more than 11 projects were funded. So it's really been a tremendous year for us working in global grants around the world: Chicago, India, Guatemala, Bolivia, Mexico, Honduras, Romania, Croatia, the UK, and also Ecuador. The photo that you see there, this was a local global grant, Chicago Oak Park River Forest. It's a global grant called Bridging the Digital Divide Through Peace, working with an organization in Chicago in the Austin neighborhood called Kids Express, where it's one of the most poverty stricken areas of Chicago. A lot of the kids, just don't have access to digital learning. And this project is going to help provide equipment, peer-to-peer mentoring, as well as tutoring for these kids to help build those skills and a lot more. We're really excited about that project. That's just one of many. District grants, I'm always so glad when my numbers match with Rachel's. We had over $41,000 of district funds that went out to our clubs, 34 clubs, for 46 projects for district grant projects, which were mostly local projects, really wonderful projects. They're the projects, that you love, that you're doing in your communities. This photo here is one of our 3rd grade dictionary projects. It's the Chicago Heights Park Forest Club. I love those projects. I love seeing the kids with the dictionaries. But we've done a lot of different types of projects in our communities, supporting youth and scholarships, food pantries, just really all kinds of organizations. So when we think about our district funds, those are the things that we think about the most, are those global grants and those district projects. But we also do have some district funds going to polio. Some of our clubs chose, rather than to use their district grant funds for projects, to actually have us hold those district dollars and match a portion of their contributions to Polio Plus with district funds, which has the benefit of being matched by the World Fund and then by the Gates Foundation 2-to-1. And so far this year, it's been about $9,000. We anticipate probably another $4,000 will be released on matches, and will also be sent up to the Polio Plus Fund as DDF, which will get matched up. And then disaster response. This has just been an incredible area since March. We donated $5,000 of district funds. We did apply for a $25,000 disaster response grant, and we received it in the 2nd round of funding, it was just amazing what the Rotary Foundation did to make those funds available. We invited our clubs to apply for up to $1,000 grants in their community to help out. We had 30 clubs apply. And so we were able to raise another $6,000 of matching funds from other sources to allow every club that applied to do a $1,000 grant. Overall, we funded 31 projects, and it was food scarcity, it was PPE, it was frontline workers. And this photo here is the Chicago Little Village club who's helped out. They've helped a number of food pantries in their community, and this is one of them. So really wonderful projects. These are the things that we have done with your contributions to the Rotary Foundation 3 years ago. Now we're going to move into the recognition portion of our program, and I will be in a moment turning it over to District Governor Debbie Ross. But I just want to mention that Debbie will be recognizing all of the new major donors or major donors who've reached a new level, but we will actually be presenting the awards to 2 of the donors tonight. So Debbie?
Thank you, Rachel, and good evening again. One of the best parts of being district governor is that I get to present these kinds of awards. So it is now my pleasure to introduce the group to the newest donors to our Rotary Foundation. So Stephen will mention that at the new major donor level 1, we congratulate and say thank you to James and Mary Curto. Also at the new major donor level 1, we congratulate our district foundation chair and a recent award recipient of Rotarian of the Year, Rachel Osira. Another one of our new major donors at level 1 is Mr. William Planick. We say thank you and congratulations to Bill. And then tonight, I am privileged to be able to present the award, the Major Donor Award, to Ms. Claire Marie Keenan of the Oak Park River Forest Rotary Club. This is Claire Marie. I apologize that it's a Zoom presentation, but we were able to deliver her award to her. We say congratulations and thank you for your generosity. And Claire Marie told me that it was important that she do that this year, and I think it's an exceptional award for an exceptional Rotarian. So thank you very, very much, Claire Marie. So also this evening, we are going to present virtually the Major Donor Level 1 Award to Ms. Jody Robinson of the Rotary Club of Oak Forest. Again, an exceptional Rotarian who made a long-term commitment to get this done. And Jody, why don't you explain to us why it was important for you to be a major donor and how you went about doing it?
I've got my family here with me. Family is extremely important to me, and Rotary is my family. When I was installed by Larry Stitchway, past district governor, many years ago, 10 years ago to be exact, in July, he told me that Rotary Foundation is something that's really important, and he would encourage me to try to donate $1,000 a year. I made a commitment to do that, and I didn't know what twists and turns life would bring, but I went through a divorce, had to start all over, didn't have a whole lot of money, but Rotary Foundation was really important to me, and in order to do that $85 a month, it doesn't seem like that much money, but at that time it was a lot of money for me. I gave up cable and I downgraded my internet package just to make sure that I could still do that $85 a month. Life's much better for me now, and I've been able to donate not only to the Rotary Foundation, the International Rotary Foundation, but also to my club foundation and to some other projects that I think have been really worthwhile. I encourage all of you to just look in your heart and look at your time, your talent, and your treasure. Rotary needs all of those things, but at any given time, we may have more time than we have treasure, or we may have more talent than we have time, but there's always a way that we can give. So I encourage each of you and thank each of you, because I know you've already made that commitment, so I'm kind of preaching to the choir. But you know, I want you to encourage and keep talking to other Rotarians to do this, because it is very fulfilling. And I've met some of the people that, you know, Rotary International has helped, and it's amazing to see all of the things that we've done all over the world and right in our own backyard. So thank you very much.
Jody, thank you for that. Thank you for sharing what I know is a heartfelt story. I so admire and respect the journey that brought you here, and you certainly have set a standard for the rest of us to follow. So thank you very, very much for that. But we have more good news to share, and that is we have some congratulations due to our major donor level 2. And that's a congratulations and thank you to Mr. Charles Westfall. And last at the major donor level, number 3, we congratulate and thank our past district governor, Pedro Ceballos, and his wife, Pamela Brockman. Thank you for your generosity. At the level of Bequest Society, we would like to say thank you and congratulations to Mandy Lewis Jourdain of the Rotary Club of Chicago Cosmopolitan. We thank you, Mandy, for your generosity. It is now my privilege to introduce past District Governor Rick Thurnow, who will introduce the Paul Harris Society.
Before I tell you about the history of the Paul Harris Society in our district, I first of all want to say thank you to each and every one of you for your commitment to our foundation. But in addition to that, I want to thank you on behalf of the thousands, no, I'm sorry, on behalf of the millions of lives that you have changed because of your commitment to our foundation. So on behalf of them, a very big thank you. In 2005, I was coming in as district governor of our Rotary district, and I was hearing something called the Paul Harris Society. And I learned that in 1999, it was the brainchild of some district governor somewhere in the world. And I thought, let's learn a little bit more about it. And I learned that Paul Harris Society was made up of individuals that contribute $1,000 a year to our foundation. Well, as an incoming governor, you go to the International Assembly. And at that assembly, the incoming governor is asked, what is your goal? What is your district going to give to the foundation? And I was told by many past district governors, we always give $140,000. And I said, well, where does that number come from? And they said, well, that's the number we give every year. Well, I grew up in a house where goals were very important. And my dad always instilled to us, you can't just set a goal. You have to set a goal very high and work hard to get to it. So I started really thinking about the Paul Harris Society, and I was speaking with our current governor at that time, Chris Riley, and Chris and I had a lot of extensive talks about it. So when I became governor, I said, we're going to start this in our district. And I asked Chris to chair the committee for me, or for the district. And since we were in the centennial year, Chris and I thought the appropriate goal was 100 members. Just starting out, we set the goal at 100 members. We didn't quite make it, but we set it far higher than any other district that we were talking with. But this is the important thing. Because of the Paul Harris Society in our district gives much more than $140,000 a year to the foundation. And since 2005, our district Paul Harris Society members has given over $1 million to the foundation. In the last 15 years, the Paul Harris Society in our district has given to our foundation more than $1 million. Worldwide, about 18% of the foundation donations for the annual fund comes from Paul Harris Society members from around the world. There are currently about 25,000 Paul Harris Society members representing about 141 countries. Now, as I said earlier, to become a Paul Harris Society member, you make a commitment to give $1,000 a year. You could do it annually, you could do it monthly like Jody does. I do it quarterly. And I go to the extreme where I have the foundation through Rotary Direct charge my credit card every quarter $250. And at the end of the year, obviously they get their $1,000, but I get something in return. I get miles on my credit card for travel purposes. But I went one step further. I have the Rotary credit card, so the foundation gets a little bit more because of that. But I would encourage each and every one of you, if you're not a member of the Paul Harris Society, think about it. If you have questions in regards to it, please contact me. And if you're ready to make that next step, please let me know as well. In Rotary, everything's paperwork, and there's paperwork for that. But you do get a really cool badge or pin to wear on your lapel. So there's always a pin involved. So again, I would like to thank all of you for your support of our foundation, because together we are truly changing the world. Well, we have some new Paul Harris Society members this year, and I'd like to recognize them and give them a big thank you. The very first one, Scott Eggerding, Patty Eggerding, Barry McEwen, Marlon Rehas, our own District Governor Debbie Ross, and Joanne Ragona. And on behalf of the foundation, on behalf of all the people that you're helping, and from me, I say thank you, thank you, thank you. We are truly making a difference in this world. So I guess it's back to you, Rachel.
Thank you very much, Rick. Thank you for sharing this story, and thank you personally for getting the Paul Harris Society started in District 6450. Very wonderful. And thank you to all of our Paul Harris Society members. We want to do another special recognition tonight. We had a club become 100% Paul Harris Fellows this past year. We normally would have recognized this at our big bodacious celebration in April. But since we weren't able to, we do want to recognize the Rotary Club of Chicago O'Hare for this very, very special, very committed level of contribution, where all of their members became 100% Paul Harris Fellows. It means they've all at some point donated at least $1,000 and have those Paul Harris Fellow points. The flags, I believe, flag will come in the fall to District Governor-elect Chuck Corrigan. So that's the prize yet to come. But hearty congratulations to the Rotary Club of Chicago O'Hare. Back to you, Debbie.
Thank you, Rachel. I think it's important this evening for us to recognize those that have performed notably for our district and our organization. While none of us do what we do for the praise or glory, it is important to be remembered and recognized among ourselves in the quiet of the evening. So on behalf of Rotary International District 6450, the birthplace of Rotary, the Board of Directors and the members of our district, I thank each of you who have gone to an extraordinary place to support the efforts of our Rotary Foundation. The works of the signature organization highlight the role that Rotary plays in changing the world for the better. Let us remember we are all invited to support this cause, which creates our identity in the world community. It is how we change lives, improve conditions, and do our part to save the planet we inhabit, one person, one project at a time. Thank you for sharing your evening with us. Thank you for the work you do and are doing each and every day in your club and your community, and for giving us reason to hold our heads high when we say that we are Rotarians. But no event, or in this case, Zoom meeting, is complete without reciting the code by which we all conduct ourselves. So with that in mind, I would like to introduce a gentleman who has been in all things Rotary, my right arm, my partner in service for the last 24 months, and who will in 12, count them, 12 short days, become the next Rotary International District Governor, our very own District Governor-elect, Mr. Chuck Corrigan. Chuck.
The Rotary four-way test of the things we think, say, or do. First, is it the truth? Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, will it build goodwill and better friendships? And fourth, will be beneficial to all concerned.
Well, thank you everyone for joining us this evening.